what is needed for Fremont County to take that next step in evolution?
Yeah, the challenge we have is that housing and commercial development, we need them both. Mm-hmm. But one needs the other first, the chicken and an egg scenario.
Got it.
So which one comes first? If you're recruiting retail wants rooftops wants retail. Industry wants workforce. So how do we create all of that at one time? And a lot of our goal, whether it's FEDC or the city, is to get us on the map as part of the supply chain of the Front Range commerce centers, because we're an hour from Pueblo Airport, hour from Colorado Springs, 2 hours from like the third busiest airport in the world.
That's right.
So it makes a lot of sense to invest in our community. We've got some developments down there that are coming about. 4 Mile Ranch land development is one of them.
The very latest on economic development, workforce, and industry sector news in Southern Colorado. Here is Business Digest Weekly with our host, Dirk Hobbs.
Good Friday afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Business Digest Weekly. I am your host, Dirk Hobbs, and I'm glad you're with us here on this Friday, March 14th. Gosh, we're headlong into the end of Q1 2025, and I hope your 2025 is off to a great start and you've had a good business quarter. And we're here to talk a little bit about economic development on all fronts, and I happen to have two gentlemen across the board from me, Rob Brown, Executive Director of the Fremont Economic Development Corporation, and Rick Harrmann. He's an Economic Development Manager for the city of Canon City. So we'll get back to those gentlemen in just a second. But, you know, one of the things I love about this program, and I think folks are picking up on it, not only in the region here, but throughout the state, is how we can showcase the entire region as a macro economy and start to break down some of the old barriers that have existed there for a long time and dispel old myths and perceptions of communities, because we have some rich innovation and accelerator conversations going on throughout Southern Colorado. It's not just Colorado Springs. And in fact, Colorado Springs is often fighting for its own attention at the OEDIT level. So this is really fun. I'm glad to have these guys in the room and on the air with us, because we get to talk about a part of the community that we don't often hear about, and we're going to start to hear a lot more about. There's a program in Fremont County called TechSTART, and we're going to unpack that a little bit. But there's some innovation, there's some industry growing down in that segment of our state. And, you know, the corridor between Canon City and Pueblo, that's starting to open up as well as the I-25 corridor going from Castle Rock down to Trinidad. But we've got some neat incubators and accelerators that are taking shape and digging in and starting to give some of these folks that, yes, they're lower population centers, but there's every bit the sophistication and interest in innovation and product development, solutions development. And we're going to talk about some of this stuff today, and how Canon City has continued to grow and what the vision looks like for that community as we enter into a more collaborative season among all the Southern Colorado communities. So, gentlemen, welcome to the program. Glad you're here. Rob, Rick.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Good to see you guys here. Thanks for making the trip in.
By all
really
means.
Appreciate that. And, you know, we had a 40 under 40 not long ago, and we we actually got a great nomination out of a gentleman named Alex Ewers. Is it Ewers or
Ewers?
Ewers. Okay.
Yeah, that's how he
and
pronounces it.
he is a owner and civil engineer of Three Rocks Engineering and Surveying out of Canon City, and it was really neat to have a representative out of that community come in and take a bow.
Yeah, so. Absolutely. He's great young man, and he's doing a wonderful job in our community. So couldn't be more proud.
No question about it. Well, let's get to know you fellas first. We'd like to orient our listeners and viewers as to who we're talking to here. So sure. Let's start with you, Rick. You're right across from me. So
yeah.
How'd you get involved in this EDC work here?
Wow, that's a loaded question. I've been economic development manager for 5 years. Spent some time prior to that volunteering with FEDC on an initiative called TechSTART, trying to help a guy create an indoor lettuce production facility in Canon City.
Oh, wow.
In the region.
Okay.
Didn't work, but I spent a year volunteering on that, working with him and trying to get his investors understanding why Canon City. But prior to that, I came from the Midwest. My background was the vice president of a small manufacturing company, and moved here and realized really, I wasn't necessarily interested in manufacturing any longer, but there really wasn't much here. There's a small core of it. Came across the position of economic development manager, and I thought, well, if there's need for growth in the community, I've been in business development my whole life. I mean, I think I can probably handle that pretty well. Got to know Rob shortly after I moved to town. He's like the third person I met, I think.
Okay.
And then worked my way into the position, and it's a fascinating area. It's a fascinating story behind it, and tons of potential for growth.
No question about it. As I mentioned in our pre-interview, I used to run down there for what is now Common Spirit, Centura, probably once a week. And I loved Fremont County. I love Canon City. There's a lot of, there's a great culture down there, some great restaurants. And of course, it's the banana belt of Southeast Colorado. So.
Certainly is.
So what attracted you to the community from the Midwest?
Well, actually, Centura at the time is what attracted us to the community. Okay. My wife got a job there at the hospital as a speech pathologist.
Oh, no kidding. Okay.
So she was hired by your friend Rick.
That's right.
And didn't last very long there as a full-time position. And then she went on to San Maria Corwin, the Colorado Springs hospitals as a speech pathologist. But that is really what drew us there. But what keeps us there is the environment.
Yeah.
There, I'm a mountain biker. I'm an outdoor. We are both outdoor people. We're both skiers. And just the fact that you can leave your living room, get on a bike, be on a trail in just a few minutes, for me is fascinating. And it was culture shock. Don't get me wrong when I moved there, because I moved from a much more vibrant, populated area. But the pace of life, it was honestly like stepping back.
Yeah. You get to catch up a little bit.
Well, I actually had to like put on the brakes because I was still running at this pace, and you see the pace in Colorado Springs and Denver. But when you come to Canon City, it's just like everything settles down.
It's kind of nice.
It's really a fascinating area, but absolutely stunningly beautiful.
And then you picked up with the city at some point.
Picked up with the city. Yeah. Really took an interest in the story of Canon City. The history of Canon City is fascinating.
Very rich, yes.
It's the 5th oldest city in the state.
I didn't know that.
Actually. Heavily involved with the creation of the territory, Colorado Territory, heavily involved with the creation of the state. So the challenges we have growth-wise are just fascinating to me. And there's connectivity that can be made that's been lost over the years, primarily because of, quite honestly, the interstate.
Right.
Yeah. Interstate cut us off from the Front Range. So that created some very interesting challenges for the community. But when people come to the community, like investors for 4 Mile Ranch, there's an investor out of Honolulu who comes to 4 Mile Ranch and he looks around and he says, "Do you realize what you have here?"
Yes.
Like, yeah, we do.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, there are people in the community that don't want people to know that.
I'm
but
certain of that.
I'm here now. Close the door behind me.
Yeah, exactly. But we do need to grow the community. We've got some infrastructure needs. We just plainly need to grow the community to some extent. So.
Well, every community goes through that cycle. I mean, there's a sense of maturity that evolves over time. You have to invest in infrastructure and the things, it's like putting new tires on your car. It's like, I got to do this, to make sure the thing stays on the road. Rob,
that's right.
Let's get a little background on you, sir.
Well, I have a little longer tenure with Colorado.
Are you a native down there?
Rick, I'm a native. I'm a 4th-generation native. So my family moved.
You don't look that old.
Yeah, no, you don't.
No, I have held up well.
Yes, that sun is
they
good
moved
down
here in
there.
1868.
Oh wow!
So
you got pioneer tags.
Yeah, definitely have pioneer tags. And my great my 3 greats grandfather actually homesteaded in Elbert County.
Okay.
In 1868 with a lot of other folks after the Civil War. And so family's been here since then. And then my family moved very early, recently after I was born, to Canon City.
Yeah.
So I kind of grew up in Canon City and grew up in Fremont County.
Very good.
And then like every other kid in the world, unfortunately, the moment I got the opportunity, I moved to the big city.
Got it.
I left Fremont County and said, I gotta go to the big city. Well, 25 years later, in 2007, I was able to move back to Fremont County.
Which
to
big
Canon
city?
I lived in Denver.
Okay.
Denver area. And ran my business there, and I've been very prosperous there, and no problem there at all. But I wanted that transformative lifestyle, like Rick suggested. I wanted to move back to Fremont County, where things were moving at a pace, and I could transform my lifestyle into a live work instead of a work to live kind of a scenario.
Amen, brother.
Yeah.
And but very very recently, we've kind of seen this transition, but at that point in time in 2007, when I moved back, we were looking at abject poverty. The community was not doing well. Things were not what I had remembered them as a kid. And so it was kind of a call to action, and that's when I got involved. So I still maintain my business interests and have a successful business in the data market, but I started with FEDC about a dozen years ago or so. So anyways, I'm a native. I'm an outdoors person as well. I love living in Fremont County. My wife and I both work remotely in our jobs, so we can live anywhere we want in the entire United States. And we have selected Fremont County as a place we want to be. So we love it down there.
Don't blame you.
Yeah.
I really appreciate the landscape, and a lot of folks understand Fremont County to have certain economic infrastructures down there. Obviously, the prison system, the Department of Corrections is very prominent down there. But there's other aspects of that economic infrastructure that I want to talk about.
Absolutely.
And while the lifestyle may be stately, innovation and invention is picking up at a steam down there. And part of the goal of the Business Digest is really to create continuity and connectivity among all the community centers throughout Southeast Colorado and let investors see the potential and the untapped reserves that are in these different communities. Because, Pueblo's sitting on an $80 million war chest for economic development.
That's right.
And
That's right.
Fremont County's got a lot going on down there. And the south part of the state, the border, Trinidad and San Luis Valley, there's a lot going on down there. There's an emerging campus down there as well.
That's right.
So I want folks to see that, and I want them to see some rich opportunities to come in and plant their flag, much like you guys did.
Absolutely. We would invite them to that opportunity as well.
Indeed. Well, I want to unpack the infrastructure down in Fremont County and get some perspective from you guys, some numbers and some background and data, and understand how the apparatus works down there. So we're going to come back with these two gentlemen in just a minute. I got Rick Harrmann, who is the Economic Development Manager for the City of Canon City, and Rob Brown, Executive Director for Fremont Economic Development Corporation. TechSTART, we're going to understand what that is as well. We're back in a moment.
My experience with Colorado Springs Orthopedic Group has been top-notch. The whole orthopedic group, they've worked very well together. Even when I've gone through PT or needed to get my collar prosthetic, everybody's been just right on top of it. It's all centralized and the communications have been awesome. Even though I had my nervousness about going into surgery, I was still very confident. I knew I was going to be okay. Colorado Springs Orthopedic Group is definitely getting me back to my life and the things that I want to do.
All right, we're back here second quarter on a March 14th here in Southern Colorado. I'm your host, Dirk Hobbs, and you're listening to the Business Digest Weekly. Quick shout out to our friends at Colorado Springs Orthopedic Group who help underwrite this program and allow us to visit with leaders throughout southeastern Colorado. Today is no exception. I have Economic Development Manager Rick Harrmann. He's with the City of Canon City, and Rob Brown, who's the Executive Director of a thing called TechSTART. It's out of the Fremont Economic Development Corporation. And I encourage you to go to their websites. It's fremontedc.com, fremontedc.com, and then you put a /TechSTART on that, and you'll get directly to the TechSTART website. Gentlemen, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Much
glad you're here.
appreciated.
So we got a little background on each of you, a Midwesterner come in here and a native.
Absolutely.
Went to the city and flew back home.
That's right. That's right. Wayward son.
A wayward son.
Kansas,
Oh,
1977.
yeah, I love those guys, man. Those guys were awesome.
That's
Carry
right.
on, sir. So I love the fact that we're talking about economic development in all parts of southeastern Colorado. And I think if you're a site selector or an employer, big employer, and you're looking for opportunities in other states where there's some incentives, but there's also municipality governments and EDCs are working together for the first time like I've never seen. You know,
Agreed.
in Colorado Springs, I'll just give you guys this framework. If you asked me 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, Colorado Springs was a difficult place to start a business.
Yeah.
It was cumbersome, full of red tape, just not organized. And man, they were in no hurry to get anywhere. But today, that's different. Did you guys experience the same dynamic in Fremont?
Yeah,
Or has it always
absolutely.
been? Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Mhm.
we initially, when we rebooted FEDC, or Fremont Economic Development Corporation, about a dozen years ago, we just simply weren't relevant on the stage, right?
Sure,
We just
yeah.
weren't even on the map, so to speak. And there was a big project, a call center project, that tech-based call center project
I
that
remember this.
we wanted to compete for that.
Yeah.
And we threw our hat in the ring, and we have some folks in the community that really understand that aspect, technology-wise. And we didn't win.
Just not prepared?
We didn't know why we didn't win. We had this great proposal and so forth. So I was persistent. I said, I need an answer. I need to know why we didn't win. We had the best proposal in our opinion. And they said, you're not relevant. You're not relevant in the tech industry. You can't demonstrate to us that you know enough about tech. You have enough momentum there that you could fulfill the project. So we wanted to pick another rural area, outside of Denver. And I said, well, who did you select? And they said, Castle Rock.
Huh.
It's like Castle Rock,
Wow.
rural Castle Rock.
Yeah.
No.
It's a bedroom town of Denver.
Yeah, that's right. It's exactly what it was. And so that's what stimulated us to become relevant in that tech space.
Okay.
And so it was a mission. It was one of those things where I had no difficulty at that moment in time putting my hand on someone's shoulder and say, get involved in this process.
Right.
And we very quickly discovered that we had the tools that we needed. We just hadn't realized them yet. We hadn't activated them yet. We hadn't motivated them to the cause. And we've done that now. And
Okay.
now we are relevant. And
I
now
love
we are starting to make a difference in that particular segment and others. That was kind of our launching point, but we have a number of other initiatives that are equally as successful now.
Well, and you guys know as well as anybody, I mean, part of this discussion is workforce preparation, right?
That's right.
And it starts at K through 12. I mean,
Yeah.
we've always looked at the higher education institutions and put the burden on them to pump these kids out and have them locked and loaded, ready for work. But, a lot of them are off chasing degrees that have nothing to do with any of modern technology or modern industry.
Absolutely.
And so they're coming out largely unprepared. So they're having to retool those folks. But the thing I love about southeastern Colorado, El Paso, Teller, Pueblo, Fremont, Alamosa, I mean, all of these groups are talking about K through 12.
That's right.
And really starting to dial in on preparing these students for careers of today.
Yeah, and that's fascinating, actually, what Fremont County's done with that. I mean, the school systems in general, historically, it's tough to keep up the industry to some extent, especially outside of the high school system. Community colleges are difficult because do kids want to go to community college? Do they want to go to college? Do they want to go back in my day, it was a technical college.
Right.
And we worked back in industry more with the technical colleges, but it's more like the tech sector, the growth of the tech sector is driving the success of the school system to some extent. It didn't take a lot of push. It's not like it's thousands of people in the tech sector, but the motivation, the drive to grow the community on the tech side has resulted in the school systems coming along, and the school systems were very smart to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Public community college struggles a little bit trying to create new curriculum to match But it's driving those changes in the school system.
No question about it.
Which, industry has in the past had a tendency to drive education. So,
That's correct.
So the success we're seeing now, especially the school system, is fascinating, really, in the county, and that's drawing attention.
Yeah, absolutely.
People in the state. So there's a lot that's evolving from just this group of guys or group of people, who realized that they all existed in this little community.
That's right.
To drive TechSTART.
Oh, and I love the fact that you guys have pitched this tent, and I want to get under the hood of TechSTART and some of the other programs. I know Emerging Campus is close by, and in an adjacent community called Florence.
Florence. Yeah.
Fluorescence, the other
the other one.
Yeah. It's the other one with the dinosaur bones.
Also close by. Yeah. Yeah.
But, again, I think our communities in general is not just each individual community playing well together in a more intentional, well-oiled EDC machine, but I think the communities are starting to play together for the first time in the state's history, frankly, because, Pueblo was Pueblo, Canyon was Canyon, and, Colorado Springs was the stepchild of Denver, and so on and so forth. I think those walls are breaking down. I mean, we have a very transient community, a lot of military here in El Paso. I think they're probably starting to trickle into Pueblo and even Canyon.
Absolutely.
And then the professional community, like you guys, I mean, you look for communities like Fremont County and Canon City because they are the ability to actually grab a hold of your life as well as,
That's right.
as do the work stuff, right?
Surprise, surprise, you're here. And, you're here and you're probably sticking around for a while. Yeah.
Amen.
That's
brother.
right.
Well,
That's
and
right.
I love the fact that you said, within 2 or 3 minutes, you're on a really great trail in Fremont County.
Right.
So if you're a cyclist or a runner,
Yeah.
and you got a great golf course down there.
We do. Yeah, we're trying to expand on that
4 Mile
too. Yeah.
4 Mile Ranch is a great track.
Yeah.
Rick Harrmann took me out there one time, and man, we had the time of our lives. So,
Yeah.
It's
anyway.
beautiful. It really
Absolutely.
is.
All right, fellas. So tell us a little bit about TechSTART. Great program. And this is, again, something that Alex Ewers came out of.
That's
with
right.
Three Rocks Engineering and Surveying.
Yeah, that's correct.
So
That's
unpack
correct.
it for us.
Well, I had come up with this concept that I was calling a profit cluster. And the profit cluster is a micro ecosystem that is generated to support some kind of industry or some kind of initiative or a business or something along those lines. So I was talking all over the community about this concept that we had, and it just wasn't resonating. People weren't getting it. And I can remember very distinctly going to a meeting, doing a presentation, and having, silence. People just weren't engaged. They just didn't get it. And so I was very frustrated. So I went home and, I've got a business to run as well. So I went in the house. My wife's working. She's an SAP developer and quality control expert. And she said, gosh, what happened? And I said, didn't have a good day. This didn't go well. We're apparently not tech relevant and people don't get the profit cluster concept. And she goes, man, I'd love to talk to you, but I got a big routine I've got to run and I got to get this done. And I said, yeah, I know. I've got a dozen emails and tech support calls I need to make. So we'll talk about it later. And at that moment in time, this little light bulb appeared above my head. And it's like, we are doing tech now.
Yes.
Right here in my household, we're doing tech. And so it was a matter of activating those people in the community. So I had met an individual by the name of Brad Rowland. And Brad is a very special person and very well connected in the tech space. And he was also working remotely at the time in Canon City and Fremont County. And he came from the Bay Area. So he was playing with the big boys out on the West Slope. West Coast. West Coast,
Being
excuse me, not
Wisconsin,
West
man, I'm
Slope.
assuming you're not talking about Green Bay. So.
Exactly, not Green Bay, not Green Bay anymore. But we sat down and collaborated, and I said, "You get the profit cluster thing, right?" And he says, "Yeah, I get it." He said,
I got it too.
He said, "But let's build one. Let's make one. Let's create
That's
this
all it
thing."
takes sometimes, isn't
And
it?
so
Is a kindred spirit.
we rolled up our sleeves and we created the concept of TechSTART. So what TechSTART is it's a micro ecosystem designed to support technology-based startup businesses in Fremont County, and that's exactly what we started. So we put some thought into it. We created some outlines and some bullet points, and then ultimately we found some brick and mortar that had 23 office spaces in this little
Nice.
section on the second floor of one of our historic buildings in downtown Canon City. And we hung up a shingle, digitally speaking. And next thing you know, we had one business, and then we had two businesses, and then we had 3 and 4 and 5, and finally we had more than 20 individual startup businesses operating in that facility almost overnight, in a matter of months. So there was this huge pent-up demand. There were all these individual businesses that needed some synergy with others, that needed some mentoring, that needed some catalyst, to be provided. And we proved to be that particular resource. And Alex in Three Rocks Engineering, when he was just one of the 3 rocks, it was just him. He was right there to start the process off. And that's how we got it off the ground.
I love this story, folks, don't you? I mean, this, we're talking the language of economic development. And if this blows your hair back, you're going to love the second half of this conversation, because we're going to do a deeper dive into some of the assets and infrastructure that are in Fremont and Canon City right now. And if you're an investor, if you're looking for an opportunity to start a seed company or come out of your garage and start to incubate with other like-minded folks, this is a good place to hang out. So stick with us. We're back in a moment. All right, third quarter here, Business Digest Weekly. I'm your host, Dirk Hobbs. Thank you to our friends at Colorado Springs Orthopedic Group for underwriting this program, because we get to meet the economic movers and shakers throughout southeastern Colorado, and today is no exception. Here on this March 14th, Friday, you're about 90 minutes from your first hot toddy, cold toddy maybe. We're getting into that season, right?
Toddy enough.
Toddy sounds good. We have Economic Development Manager Rick Harrmann. He's with the City of Canon City, and with Rob Brown, who's the Executive Director of Fremont Economic Development Corporation. Folks, if you want to listen on or look at their website while you're listening to this great conversation, go to Fremont. That's FREMONT.EDC.com. Folks, this is a lot of stuff happening down there. Gentlemen, I'd like to get a perspective on what some of the current assets are down there, generally speaking. I mean, obviously, a lot of folks who live in the region associate Fremont County in large part with tourism. The bridge is close by. And then, of course, the Department of Corrections has a very strong presence down there, and that's a very strong economic powerhouse down there. What else is going on in Fremont County that people need to know about as far as industry sectors are concerned? I know healthcare is there.
Absolutely. Yeah. Once we stood up the TechSTART concept and started to gain some momentum, we said, hey, we're on to something with this START initiatives. And so we very quickly rolled out WellStart, which is a ecosystem for wellness, healthcare, behavioral health, all things related to startup businesses in that segment. Then we quickly rolled out AgStart, and AgStart is also kind of a similar enterprise where kind of the collision of technology-based business and ag-based business. And we've got some great examples of people that are really thought-changing, provoking all kinds of positive activity in that particular space.
Barnell is a company like
Barnell's a great example.
They are drawing an immense amount of interest from the nation, really.
I would imagine.
Yeah, they're at the Capitol today.
Yeah.
Or yesterday. Apologize. I'm trying to get my timing straight. But
you're good, brother.
Yeah,
2 weeks ago.
Recently they were there. So anyways, Barnell is a great example of AgStart. And currently we're standing up a new one that we call TradeStart, which is a process of putting people on a career path when they're in middle school or even high school, and bringing them into the trades, because in order for a rural economy to grow, you have to be able to build it yourself, because we don't have a lot of outside support. So with these initiatives, we've been able to create momentum in each one of those individual segments. And we believe that is what's separating us. And when you roll it all up together, we call it economic homesteading. Because back in the 1850s, when the federal government said, 40 acres and a mule, people had to be able to operate on their own wits and their own capability and their own resources, but they needed an opportunity and an environment to do it. And that's what we're providing in Fremont County, is that opportunity and environment for people to homestead their own business, whether it's in technology or whether it's in, agriculture or whatever the particular, expertise is. That's what we're doing. And those are those are the resources that you ask about.
No
what
question.
are they? They're components of a vibrant, resilient rural economy that can, hold its own with other areas of the state that are much more robust in terms of, people and population density.
Yeah.
And they're providing their services outside of the community, which is vital. I think about primarily like trade, well, not so much TechSTART, but to some extent, we're also starting to get more into manufacturing. There's manufacturing in Canon City. There's
I love
not a
to hear
lot.
that.
Fremont County has manufacturing, and that's starting to grow. But they tended to operate in isolation, and a lot of people really aren't familiar with that industry in our area or the need for primary jobs and to pull money in from outside communities. We've got a number of machine shops all run by Mikes for some reason that are all that are all very talented machine shops, and they're providing products that are on the space station. There's definitely industry there, and this ecosystem that's created at TechSTART, FEDC, gives them more of almost like a corporate presence. Mm-hmm. There's a group of them now that work together.
Kind of a cohort, if you will.
Yeah, TechSTART is bringing together the trades in the area and pulling in Pueblo into that as well. So the ability to have this bigger picture for these individual businesses, I think is vital. It's vital to the growth of the area, vital to the growth of the businesses.
Would you say you guys are set up, your sweet spot is more the seed, incubator, accelerator type companies? I mean, they're really in the startup phase 1, if you will.
But
are you prepared to address stage 2 as well?
I think rural economies in general are powered by small business.
I would imagine.
That's where I was going to go
to. We always, as soon as you start to have some success, you start to gain some criticism. I mean, that's just the nature of the beast.
Interesting.
And we have citizens that said, why didn't you compete for the Tesla plant that went to Texas? It's like, well, we were fresh out of 6,000 engineers here in Fremont County, right? It's just not something that we were ever going to be able to compete for.
Sure.
But boy, we can compete for those, 5 and 10 and 25 business enterprises at a very high level, and so that's our focus. But certainly, we have some great examples of some larger organizations that have taken notice of the particular economy that we've created. Mm-hmm. And so we are starting to see that. And I had the privilege of being on the Economic Development Commission as a Senate appointee for the state of Colorado for 2 terms. Okay. And what an eye-opening experience that was. And during that period of time, PAX 8, as we discussed off the air, was looking for an opportunity to build their business in Colorado or some other state. And so the state offered them some tax incentives. And one of them was, if you put 55 people in rural Colorado, we'll give you an additional incentive. And so we positioned ourselves perfectly for that in Fremont County and brought them to Fremont County. So they're a much, much larger organization. But they have a presence now in a rural economy.
That's right.
Where they're making a significant impact and difference. And we have many other examples of that. So we are appealing to those larger organizations, but make no mistake about it, small business is our core.
Got it. Well, and you guys are emblematic of preparation meets opportunity. I mean, that's where you were with PAX 8.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And that was a perfect match because what a great dynamic that has proven to be.
Yes.
So tell me about incentives. We talked earlier about Pueblo having an $80 million war chest for economic development. That's probably not. It's not even the case here in Colorado Springs. Probably not the case in Fremont, I would imagine, unless I don't know something.
well, we're close. We're only about $80 million short.
Copy that.
Of that, but
that's relatively close.
Yeah. We certainly are envious of Pedco and the ability that they have created over there. But that's a tax-based incentive, right? It's funded through tax dollars. Fremont County, quite a bit more conservative, and
that's an understatement.
Yeah, taxes are not necessarily our favorite way of funding. So what we've really turned to is the grant cycle and the grant engine. And we said if we're going to be good at this, we're going to be great at this. And so we've really done a good job of seeking out and winning the grants and bringing them in. And we funded a lot of businesses with that mechanism.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The city itself does have tax increment financing available. The challenge is with industry, we just don't have the real estate.
That's right.
Within the city.
Yeah.
So retail, smaller opportunities, smaller development opportunities, the residential developments we have right now, we can create URA areas, and get tax increment financing there. But in terms of bringing industry to the community, I'm actually promoting real estate outside of the city limits because there's just not real estate available.
Where does that end in Fremont? Generally,
it's like a sawtooth.
Yeah, I would imagine.
It ends. Where the Love's Travel Plaza is at Fremont Parkway, right there. It ends on the east side.
Okay,
and then it ends right along US 50, going north on the west side.
Got it.
The planned growth area. It's pretty small. Yeah, we can go north. We're pretty much landlocked, though.
Yeah.
Any growth we're going to have is really going to be to the east.
That's correct.
Industrial sites are more probably closer to the airport.
Mm-hmm.
Further east of town. There's a lot of real estate out there.
Yep.
But we don't, and we do have potential growth to the south, but there's this complicated little area there called a superfund that complicates that whole geography down there. So,
yep. Well, that's just part of the things you guys got to work around.
Yeah. Yeah, we certainly do. Yeah.
Well, I want to talk a little bit more about TechSTART and what you guys are doing, some of the seed companies that are coming up and through there, and some of the ideas and curriculum that you guys are working on. Is the it's not really an but is the Highway 50 corridor, is that really starting to open up and you're starting to see more opportunities go along there as far as distribution and supply chain and everything else?
Interesting you say that, because that's something that I promote quite a bit, talking to industry site selectors. When I think we talked about this offline, but when I was working with AgStart, with the gentleman that wanted to create an indoor lettuce production facility, automated hydroponic, he asked me to do a PowerPoint for his investors, like why Canon City. So I had CDOT do an analysis of I-70 and US 50 closures. How often do you close? I took a couple of snapshots, how long it would take to get from Denver to Grand Junction, Canon City to Grand Junction. And I-70 is closed 300 and some times per year. And then if you're a trucking company that can't go through the tunnels, you have to take Independence Pass.
That's right.
So it's very, very complicated and it can take a very, very long time. So US 50 is very strong east-west corridor.
Yes, it is.
Coast to coast almost. So there's a lot of benefit to that. It's still 2-lane, obviously, in some cases, but there's a lot of benefit to it. But industry in general in Colorado isn't focused around the US 50 corridor. It's I-25 and I-70.
And 70, yeah.
So that's a little bit of a challenge. We need to prove it. Got it. A little bit more than I think urban communities do. You mentioned that before. We need to prove it. So it's part of the story, though.
Yep. And 50's open a lot more.
50's open a lot more, yeah. We did through town. We made some improvements to it to slow traffic down.
Yeah.
Primarily to save lives as people are trying to cross the road.
You got a lot of crossings there.
And get people onto Main Street to encourage commerce in our downtown area.
Absolutely.
But that's one of my bigger stories, is that US 50 is an opportunity that's being missed right now.
And it's not going to be missed for long, so hold your seats. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to also give a shout out to Bunkhouse Burger. It's one of the best burgers in the state of Colorado. So
that's true.
It really is. It's pretty special. So anyway, we're back in a minute with these two gentlemen from Fremont County in just a moment.
My experience with Colorado Springs Orthopedic Group has been top-notch. The whole orthopedic group, they've worked very well together. Even when I've gone through PT or needed to get my collar prosthetic, everybody's been just right on top of it. It's all centralized and the communications have been awesome. Even though I had my nervousness about going into surgery, I was still very confident. I knew I was going to be okay. Colorado Springs Orthopedic Group is definitely getting me back to my life and the things that I want to do.
All right, fourth quarter here with the gentleman from Fremont County. I got Rick Harrmann, Economic Development Manager for the City of Canon City, and also Mr. Rob Brown, Executive Director of Fremont Fremont Economic Development Corporation. And if you want to go to the website, go to fremontedc.com/TechSTART, one word, TechSTART. And then, of course, Fremont is spelled with one E, Fremont, edc.com. Gentlemen, welcome back to the program. I want to give you the opportunity to talk to investors and the housing community down there and talk about what is needed for Fremont County to take that next step in evolution.
Yeah, the challenge we have is that housing and commercial development, we need them both, but one needs the other first, the chicken and an egg scenario.
Got it.
So which one comes first? If you're recruiting retail wants rooftops wants retail. Industry wants workforce. So how do we create all of that at one time? And a lot of our goal, whether it's FEDC or the city, is to get us on the map as part of the supply chain of the Front Range commerce centers, because we're an hour from Pueblo Airport, hour from Colorado Springs, 2 hours from like the third busiest airport in the world.
That's right.
So it makes a lot of sense to invest in our community. We've got some developments down there that are coming about. 4 Mile Ranch planned development is one of them. Potentially a couple thousand rooftops in there. So we need investors, housing developers to come down, take a look at the community. We have a need for Fremont County, about 270 units a year. Canon City is about 37% of that, so 99 units potentially a year in Canon City. And that is... We had a company come in and find that latent demand. It's tough for developers in our community to understand whether something will pencil or not, because the data doesn't quite support what they would traditionally see in like an urban community. They can't necessarily see a large number of apartment buildings, complexes.
Right.
So development there is just a little bit more complicated, which makes it seem a little more risky. But we have the opportunities now. 4 Mile Ranch is going to be a couple of thousand units. The Abbey complex is under new ownership now, and they're trying to figure out what to do with that 180 acres or so. And that's a beautiful site. So really the intent is to get our community on the map for investment, whether it's commercial investment, housing development, industrial investment. The time is now, really. It's ripe for growth in the community. And in terms of infrastructure, or not infrastructure, but industry, we talked about it offline. The supply chain in Colorado is from a Midwesterner. The supply chain in Colorado is very condensed, and it's got to be very difficult for industry to function the way it works in the state. Midwest, the supply chain is all over the place.
Right.
You know, in Wisconsin, I was buying steel from a contractor in Pennsylvania because there was a good deadhead route that came into our community, and he's like, "I'll bring you 40,000 pounds of steel whenever you want it." You know, so worked out really well, and I don't see that happening so much here. But expand a little bit, and there's a great opportunity for Fremont County to be part of that supply chain.
How can we change that for you guys? I mean, what's the conversation that needs to happen and with whom?
Investors generally need to come down and see the place.
Okay.
You know, there's a lot of story out there about what Canon City, what Fremont County is with all the prisons out there. We do have a lot of prisons. We don't see that as a hindrance. People outside the community see it as a hindrance. We don't, because these are our neighbors.
That's right.
And our friends.
That's right.
But it really helps to bring people down into the community to see it and to understand that it's a normal community. We tend to be too close and too far from Colorado Springs at the same time.
Interesting. Yeah.
Which is really weird that I-25 went in, and now we're this really weird location. It would almost be better to some extent if we were further west, because rural communities further west seem to get a little more recognition from industry because there's more need out there. But we're close enough to Colorado Springs that retail in particular is like, well, and this is not necessarily selling ourselves, but retailers in Colorado Springs look at our community and they realize that we're shopping in Colorado Springs.
Mm-hmm.
So why develop in Colorado Springs? But we've got a lot of growth going on right now, a lot of opportunity for housing. And we struggle with it simply because we need people in our community, and we need the housing to support those people coming to our community. And the majority of the demand for growth for our community comes from outside the community. Mm-hmm. Our growth is through net migration. It's not through natural increase.
Copy that. Yeah.
So
is Estes Rockets still down there?
Estes Rockets is still down there. It's called Estes Industries.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's under new ownership. Great family-owned business now.
And that's a great story right now, too.
They're killing it, doing a great job. And the ownership group for Estes Industries is now partnered with another startup opportunity that's called Estes Energetics. And they're going to be making products for the federal government under a governmental contract. So they're about to grow that business by several times.
Yeah.
I won't call it exponential growth, but it's going to be significant growth down there. And it's going to be some great opportunities for people in the honest to goodness manufacturing environment there. So we're pretty excited about where that's going to take us.
Yeah. We've got another company too that's called Cabins on Wheels.
Okay.
They just achieved all of their investment. Their capital stack is complete, and they are building high-end park model, basically slightly larger than tiny homes.
Yeah.
But they have like rooftop patios and
no kidding.
Yeah, it's
granite countertops and
countertops,
very nice
upscale stuff.
Okay. So that's coming along, and they've got a significant backlog. A lot of interest right now in the community in solar, like anywhere.
Yeah,
solar, data centers, potentially data centers, battery storage. We're seeing more interest in that.
Mm-hmm.
But there's definitely some momentum.
Absolutely. We call it rural reshoring.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And the concept is, Apple just announced they're going to spend $500 billion reinvesting in, manufacturing in the United States in response to the tariffs and the new administration. And why not take advantage of a ready workforce that's in a rural area where it's close to home but could benefit dramatically? And so we want to be relevant in that space as well. I mentioned tech relevance earlier. We want to be relevant in terms of rural reshoring and bring manufacturing jobs back to an area like Fremont County. And we think we're well positioned to do that. And we have the opportunity to bolster that through our profit cluster concept and bring these types of businesses into our area. There'll be great jobs, and there'll be great opportunities to swing the needle back towards the good old US of A, but do it in rural Colorado.
Yeah, and you think about local investment, regional investment, foreign direct investment. The real estate right now in Fremont County, compared to other parts of the state, pretty good price.
Very good price.
Pretty affordable.
I would agree with that.
It's pretty affordable. I mean, there's development that needs to happen. We don't necessarily have the shovel-ready sites that
that's correct.
Some want.
That's right.
But I think we are certainly interested in helping however we can create through our networks any kind of incentives that we can create for something in our community.
Is the water discussion kind of like Pueblo? I mean, you got adequate water underneath you?
We have adequate water, yeah. We have Canon City, Florence, they both have pretty senior rights, plenty of water in the area. That's the talk anyway. I never really quite know what that means.
Yeah.
Especially when you talk to the irrigation ditch companies, like, we have a lot of water. Yeah, but you can't have it.
Yeah.
You can't have it.
Okay.
It belongs to somebody.
The history of the West is written in water.
No, I got you. I got you. Well, as you know, here in El Paso County, no bueno, man.
Yeah.
It's a very difficult discussion, but it's good to see that, Pueblo and Fremont are sitting on a barrel of water, which is really good and very attractive. And like you said, land prices are right.
Yeah.
And now we're having a $500 billion discussion around AI service centers. And
that's right.
We got the quantum computing discussion that's starting to trickle down from the Boulder corridor.
That's right.
And I'd love to see you guys all of us position well to really take some of that.
Completely agree.
Yeah, I was part of that CHIPS Act effort on the state level with Wendy Lee, and that came up with it that resulted in the quantum. But it was interesting because talking about rural, I was in a Zoom meeting with Wendy, and it's like, we need rural involved with this. Like,
That's right.
Well, it's about time.
That's right. That's
It's
right.
about time. Great.
Sure do.
So,
Well, gents, I want to give you about 90 seconds to give us your best pitch to an investor who might be listening and some other employers in the region about why Fremont County. Go.
I'll let you go first.
Fremont County is a special place to live to start with.
I would agree with that.
In terms of running a business there, we're well positioned because we've got this infrastructure built that we've been working on for a number of years now. So you can start a business in Fremont County tomorrow and have the support, the assets, the resources, the mentoring, everything that you need to get that thing off the ground. But most importantly, we have the people. And I think the real difference maker in Fremont County is the people that are there now and that are being attracted there. So we've really got that critical mass going. So we'd certainly like to see business here.
I agree with that.
Yeah, and I'll expand on that. The city itself, since I work for the city is eager to draw people in the community as well. The infrastructure that's going in right now, the US 50 medians, that you can love them or hate them, everything is there to make our community much more of a live, work, play, pedestrian, cyclist friendly. As for me, I'm a cyclist, but pedestrian friendly. And I was at one point marketing the community as live, work, play. Well, every community in Colorado wants to market themselves as live, work, play. So what is it? What really differentiates this community? And it's the fact that when you're there, your whole pace of life is not about work. You're 5 minutes from home, basically. So your pace of life is you got 8 hours of work, 10 hours of work, whatever you do. But literally, you can set that aside for the most part and get out in nature. And it honestly brought my blood pressure down. I think it saved my life moving there because
That's right.
my pace was much, much higher than that. And it's a great community. And there's a lot of drive, a lot of people working together to help bring people in and help them succeed.
I agree. Rick, Rob, thank you.
Thank you.
Really
Very
appreciate this. This was a great, little view into Fremont County and the opportunities that exist for primary employers as well as those that are starting up and incubating. And I love the fact that you're doing the K through 12 discussion. Love that.
Yep.
And there's a lot of assets down there, ladies and gentlemen. And I would encourage you to take a look at fremontedc.com, fremontedc.com, and that Fremont is spelled with one E. And look up TechSTART as well. So we've been with Rick Harrmann, Economic Development Manager for the City of the City of Canon City, and Rob Brown, Executive Director of Fremont Economic Development Corporation. Glad you've been with us. We'll see you next week.
You've been tuned in to Business Digest Weekly with Dirk Hobbs. If you'd like to be considered for a spot on our show, email us at info@coloradomediagroup.com